Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this decision session of the Executive Member for Economy and Transport. That's myself. I am Councillor Pete Kilbane. The meeting is now being live streamed, so if I could ask everybody to ensure that they've got their mobile phones turned to silent. I did once say that, and at the moment I was saying it, my mobile phone started to ring. So we can all make that mistake. So, but if you can. Please do. The subjects before us can be quite emotive, but we do need to make a decision here today. So, as with all meetings, I would just ask that we all behave in a courteous and mannered way, as I'm sure we all will. Anyway, we do have some public speakers who will be given the opportunity to speak. We're slightly delayed in starting because one of the public speakers appears to have gone missing, so we've been trying to find her, but we've been unable to do so, but they may arrive at some point, and if they do arrive before the close of public participation, then I'm very happy to hear those views. I have no interest to declare myself either pecuniary or registrable in this agenda item in front of us today. There's only one agenda item on the meeting. There is also some, given the nature of the decision to be made, there are also some private papers that I have in front of me. Now, if I need to discuss those private papers, it will be necessary to close the meeting to both the press and the public so that I can enter into conversation with officers around it. Having reviewed the papers, I don't think that is going to be necessary. We do like to keep these meetings as open, public and transparent as possible. If, however, we do need to move into private session, then we'll need to adjourn the meeting while that happens. Then, of course, people will be invited back in for the decision part of the session. Okay, I am happy to approve the minutes from the previous two meetings, which I will do now. And then that leads us on. There you go, thank you. That leads us on to the fourth item on our agenda, which is public participation. We have 4 registered speakers, but I think, as I said earlier, so far we only seem to have 3 who are with us. I believe that Councillor Waters is with us online. So, Councillor Waters, you have 3 minutes. Are you able to time the 3 minutes for me? So, Councillor Waters, you'd be very familiar with this drill. So you have 3 minutes on the items in front of us on today's agenda in your own time, please.
Morning, Chair. Thank you for that. I've actually registered to speak just to thank the council officers, as much as anything, for the very comprehensive report and the clear explanations of various bits of the Highways Act. And of particular interest to me was paragraphs 11, 12 and 19, especially around the duty of the Highways Authority to act when parish councils raise matters with them regarding highway or verge-side encroachments. I'm speaking to relate this matter to another long-standing issue, and that's the illegal occupation of the public highway at Noddle Hill off the A166. Just to give you notice that, having explained the situation as comprehensively as you have, it won't be long before Dunedin Parish Council submit a similar request for the local authority to act on a situation that's been ongoing for 4.5 years. Having said that, in relation to the costs of approximately $250,000 in the matter in front of you this morning, I'd just like to relate that to a situation in my ward again, where a gentleman down Scorby Lane has had a similar situation that's been going through no fault of his own for nearly 3 decades, and is faced with paying a fortune in legal costs to sort out a mess that the council's making. Doesn't seem very fair somehow when I look at £250,000 being spent here. I'm just making best use of the remaining time. I just query when the latest round of double yellow line parking restrictions will be coming up in front of you, Chair, because, as I've copied you into various correspondence with the outgang lane proposals, I've had no communication with the officers, having come up with a more sensible proposal, but it does worry me that I'll be appearing at your decision session to object to what officers are proposing without those officers having spoken to us and come up with more sensible proposals, which, again, with you having seen all the correspondence that's flying about, I'm sure you realise the importance of that. Anyway, brief session this morning, so I'm quite happy with what I've said up to now. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, as ever, Councillor Waters. Not sure how on agenda a lot of that was, but always good to hear from you, and always good to hear councillors representing the residents. Thank you. Next up, we have the landowner who's going to speak to us. I've not got a name to announce because I believe you request a level of anonymity. So if the landowner would like to speak to us, you have 3 minutes to address the decision session meeting. Can we give a warning around about 30 seconds before the end? Is that okay? Okay, so when you're ready, feel free to sit. It's when you're ready in your own time, but it is restricted to 3 minutes. It can be a bit lenient around that, but that's the target that we're aiming for. Okay, so over to your good self.
Do I press that? Right. We'll start with Annex M. We've got that in front of you.
Okay, we have just stop the clock for a second. We do have a slight issue in that we are heading into the part of the pack that is not available to the public. Now, if it's photographs, etc., rather than the discussion documents, then I'm sure that will be fine. I mean, I do have it. We just need to be careful as. So we do.
If you look.
Sorry. Can I just for the sake of clarity, and I'll get some advice from officers here in terms of the confidential aspects of the pack. I'm assuming the reasons for that confidentiality is that one of the applicants doesn't want certain matters to go into the public domain, and is it at the request of the applicant that matters are confidential? Okay, so in your case, sir, a lot of these items are being held confidentially because you want them to be confidential. If you refer to them in public session, then they will be available to the public. Now, the question is whether or not you are happy with that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, for Annex M. Let me start the clock again. We've got 3 minutes from now.
Right. Annex M is a 1920s black and white photograph of an old chap and two girls and a herd of cows. He can be seen sitting on the road edge with his feet in the ditch. Can you see that?
Yep.
The top left shows two cows. One is standing on the verge and the other is in the ditch, which indicates that the southwest ditch is deeper than the northeast ditch. Is that okay?
Yep.
Can you see that clearly?
I can.
Yeah. The ditch as part of the verge in the ditch is part of the verge in Westfield Lane. Right. Annex G.
Yep.
Is a 1966 OS map with the southwest ditch and the drainage board ditch which crosses Westfield Lane are substantial ditches. Both are marked on the map as drains. The southwest ditch drains the brick culvert near the 30 signs in Westfield Lane. It still does to this day, as it did in the photograph of 100 years ago. I.e. the cow sitting in a ditch or standing in a ditch. This map also shows Westfield Lane as a parcel of land, parcel number 9828, with an area of 2.86 acres, which Westfield Lane has approximately length of 1,005 meters. This gives an average width of the lane of 11.5 meters. Westfield Lane has approximately, between the boundary edges. Although some of the boundary edges are no longer there, the boundary line and the ditch are still used.
You're coming to the end of your time, sir. Have you got much more to?
No, I haven't got a lot.
Okay.
I have. It's only this bit.
Sure.
I'm a bit slow.
It's okay.
This parcel of land and area are used by land agents and the land registry when title ownership is changed.
Okay.
Right. Annex 1. Next.
Okay. You're well over time now. So was this finishing off? Yep.
Annex 1, aerial photograph of 1951.
I don't have that.
I'll give you this.
Okay, thanks. Annex I, okay.
Which shows the boundary edge throughout the total length of Westfield Lane as a constant width and does not vary. Annex H next. The survey south end of Westfield Lane.
Just hold on a second, I'm struggling for Annex. I've got Annex G, then Annex H is a diagram, yeah? Annex
H, the survey of south end of Westfield Lane indicates top of the slope and bottom of the slope, edge of the field. This is unhelpful as it does not show the width of the ditch or the width of the verge. It assumes that the bottom of the ditch is the edge of the field. It is not.
Okay. Okay.
Right. The ditch is cleaned out into the field rather than onto the verge, so as to keep the verge clean for the walkers. Because of this, there is no clear indication between the top of the ditch and the boundary of the field boundary. So it was clean. If we cleaned the ditch out onto the verge, it would be more obvious as where the boundary is. We have tried to be helpful in keeping the dredgings away from the verge, only to be criticised for our farming practices.
Okay. Okay.
No,
Thank you very much.
There's a bit more. I've got to finish.
You're twice your allotted time, sir.
Well, I've got to finish the bit because this is my interest.
I understand that, but we are giving you a lot of leniency here today.
I'm a bit slow, so you've got to take into account. We have maintained the brick culvert and ditch for over 100 years. Our land agent has said there is no minimum or maximum width of the ditch, depth of the ditch. This is determined by the fall required for the drains of the land and in this case, the brick culvert under the road at the south end near the 30 signs, which has been omitted from the survey. This brick culvert drains the basin that lies between the southeast side of the Westfield Lane, which indicates an area of the churchyard allotments in Beech Grove and Westfield Close. I'm just trying to point out the importance of this culvert.
Sure. Yeah, the point's been well made.
I'm not very good at that.
Okay.
It's not my job to do this.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we may have to move into private session at some point to discuss some of the issues that you've raised, because they do refer to the to the report in the private papers. Okay, thank you. Okay, one of the speakers is still missing, so I'm assuming that they will not be in attendance today, which leaves us with last but by no means least, Sherry Scruton. Let's say, Sherry, you have 3 minutes to say your piece, and we will give you a warning towards the end, but as we showed leniency with other speakers, then the same will apply to yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Firstly, I would like to thank all involved in the City of York Council for listening to the residents' concerns. The condition of Westfield Lane has deteriorated throughout the 36 years that I've lived in Upper Popperton. The area looks more like an American prairie rather than a country lane bordered by farmland. Since the hedgerows and trees were removed, the grass verges have year on year diminished in width. Restoring the verges to Westfield Lane to their full width under the Enclosure Act, option A, would restore the amenity and biodiversity for all. This will also, I'm sure, benefit the landowner of the adjacent fields in reducing soil erosion, improving drainage once the hedgerows and trees are planted, and will very much increase the all-important pollinators. Option A will also comply with the necessity for public authorities to consider ways to conserve and enhance the biodiversity in England in accordance with the Environmental Act of 2021, in which local councils, both parish and town, are bound by this new duty. As a parish councillor, I have had many conversations with concerned villagers over the barrenness of Westfield Lane and the dangers of walking the lane without a sufficient and safe verge. Many people have commented on the stark difference in the wildlife once you hit the prairie land, and in particular, the complete lack of birdsong, which is evident where the hedgerows still exist. I very much hope that the City of York Council agrees to the reclamation of the verges on Westfield Lane and the replanting of hedgerows and trees, for which there will be many Popperton volunteers willing to help plant. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that does conclude the public speaker section. Moving into making a decision on this agenda item, I will need to go into private session with officers just to get some clarification on some of the points that have been raised, and that will need me referring to the papers that are not for for public view or for press broadcast. And as I say, we are currently live streaming. So what I propose to do is we are going to move into private session. I think 10 minutes should be enough just so that I can get some clarity on it. So I must ask all members of the public to leave the room. If you can just go to the waiting area, and then in about 10 minutes time, we'll come and call you back in for the final decision. So thank you for that. Okay, well, welcome back, everybody, and apologies for that short adjournment. I just needed to get some, excuse me, some clarity on the points that have been raised. I think it will be really useful if we're clear on what the process is that we're following here, and what this meeting is about, and what decisions are to be made at this particular meeting. So if I would just ask the officer to give us some clarity as to what the items are that are under discussion and under decision making here today, which will then inform the decision that I will make here today. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. My name is Helen Vergereau. I'm the Head of Highways Access and Development for City of York Council. So the decision, if you decide to go for one of the options where the verges are reclaimed, is basically to serve notice under the Highways Act for us to ask for these verges to be reinstated. And the landowners could challenge that notice in court, and then all the evidence would then be discussed in court as to the extent of the harm. Should I just repeat that? So if you decide to go for the recommended option or another option reclaiming the verges, the decision is to serve notice under the Highways Act, and that means that, and obviously also aim to recover the costs of reclaiming the verges, and that notice can be then challenged in court by the landowner, where then all the evidence would be discussed in court.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. So essentially, on some of the points that have been raised and to the dispute as to the ownership of the land, this is not a forum where that can be finally decided. So following on from today's decision, there may well be a challenge, and that challenge would be heard in a court following due process. So, which brings us to the decision on the items that are in front of us today. Thank officers for the report. Thank members of the public for the contributions which have illuminated the decision. I think the decision that's in front of me today, looking at the various options, I think I do have to go for option A. And the reason for that is that the other options are not really viable. Option B would almost certainly result in us, the local authority being challenged for being in breach of its duty, and it's very unlikely that option B would be acceptable to the local people as represented through their parish council, because they've made that position clear previously. Option C would again might mean that we are in breach of our duty if we fail to do nothing. So I think the way to progress this matter is that I will follow the recommended option A, which is enforcement under the sections 130, 131 and 305 of the Highways Act 180, aiming for full width restoration. For the reasons that I've just outlined. So I'm happy to approve that the council takes all necessary enforcement action to recover and reinstate the verges to their full width in accordance with sections 130, 131 and 305 of the Highways Act. And I will delegate the authority to the Director of Transport, Environment and Planning in consultation with the Director of Governance to determine and undertake all necessary activity to recover and reinstate the verges to their full width in accordance with sections 130, 131 and 305 of the Highways Act, including but not limited to the determination, drafting, commissioning and concluding of any necessary public highways works contracts in compliance with the Act, the 1980 Act and our contract procedure rules. Now, I understand that decision is not going to please everybody, and that there may be some challenges to it. The challenges to it, if they are forthcoming, again, would take place within another forum where all of those facts, some of which have been raised here today, can be debated. Okay, so hopefully that's clear enough that we are, the decision is to approve recommendation A. Okay. Any other items before us? I have no urgent business that I've been notified of. So at that point, I will draw this meeting to a close and thank everybody for their participation. Thank you.